So nice to have the TR6 home from storage and in the garage. The weather outside, not so nice. April 21st. Snow. Alright guys, welcome back to the garage. Monday, April the 26th, just coming up to 11:20 a.m. And we've got a big high out there so far of +2 degrees Celsius. Feels like -3. So pretty chilly. Let's convert that to Fahrenheit. So 36 currently, feels like 27, and it's not looking so good for the next few days either. There are the highs from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to Friday, from 52s to 57s, and I see a bunch of rain down the bottom, so not very pleasant to be out in the garage these days. Hopefully it'll warm up soon and get a little drier. As you can see, I brought the bike home, although I haven't ridden it. It's been too chilly to ride the bike even. And we are still currently under a state of emergency stay-at-home order, so haven't had the car out either. Hopefully that's going to change in the next few weeks. We have this stay-at-home order in effect until May the 20th, so we've got to figure out something to do. Since we can't drive these things technically, we should probably do a little bit to work on. Alright, if you've been following along in my 1968 Triumph TR250 project, you probably know that I'm at the primer and paint stage on my body panels, my exterior body panels. And if you had a look at that weather in the previous clip, you can probably tell that it's going to be much too cold to do any priming or painting for the next little while, for the next foreseeable future, let's say. At least until the end of April, beginning of May, it looks pretty chilly. I need a minimum of 65 to paint out here in the garage, and it's not going to be that probably for the next 2 weeks at least. So that gives me a little window of opportunity to work on my 1973 Triumph TR6 that's been sort of, I'm not going to say neglected, but it's been in storage since, let me see, my video that I took was from 2019, so October 6th and 7th from 2019 was the last time I was out in this car before it went in storage, and I just returned from a 2,800 kilometer trip to St. Louis and back for the 6-pack trial. So I've not really driven this car since that point in time. So for starters, this thing needs some regular maintenance done to it. Let's say, you know, the valves adjusted, it needs the oil changed, the fluids checked, that kind of thing. And I always like to do just a general fastener check once I bring it out and start to drive it in the spring. So that'll be the first thing, or one of the things that we do to the TR6 while we've got this time now to work on it. There are a few things that I've put off doing on this car since the restoration that I've always kind of meant to come back to fix. And one of those is the door gaps. I've never been really happy with the door gaps on this TR6. This had a full nut and bolt frame-off restoration done about probably 13 years ago now by myself. And when I put the body back on the chassis, I didn't quite get the door gaps as good as I could get them. So I think it's about time now, and I do have the time to be able to go back and address that. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get to that top gap a little bit better looking, which I think what's happened is I've just added an extra shim or two to this rear pedestal outrigger location. So we're going to do some work to fix those gaps by dropping out 1 or 2 of the shims here, and maybe doing a little bit of shimming here at the rear car to bring that top gap up a little bit closer. So that's one of the things that we're going to do on this car while I have time. One of those things that's kind of bothered me over the last number of years, but it's never bothered me enough to actually go about fixing it. But now's the time, I think. And one of the other things that I want to do on this car, outside of the regular maintenance that we talked about earlier, is I want to actually fix the Falcon stainless steel exhaust system that I've got on this car. I've never been happy with the the fit, and I've never been able to get it to seal properly. I had it on and off the car a number of times, so we're going to see if we can do a little bit better job. We're going to pull the exhaust system off again, and we've got a tailpipe expander coming. I've actually ordered a tailpipe expander because I think I've got the joints where they're sort of clamped a little bit too much, and I've dented the pipes a little bit. So we'll try to get those dents out of the pipe using a tailpipe expander. That's supposed to arrive today, so we'll put that into use once we get it. So that's another little job, well, not necessarily a little job, but it's another job that I want to do that will make this car a little bit better, in my opinion. All right, I think I need to make a little bit more room out here, so I think we'll put the Harley into its summer storage location, which is my bike barn in the rear yard. So we'll fire this baby up, and we'll move it out of the garage and get it out of the way so we can do some deconstruction on the TR6. When I mean this deconstruction, that means that I'm going to be taking parts of the interior apart. I could probably do it without doing so, but I'm going to try to probably take the opportunity to do some cleaning on the interior when I remove the seats, etc. We'll give the carpets a good deep cleaning. So we're going to probably disassemble the interior partially at least, and obviously we need to take the boot apart and take out the spare tire, the tire board, and all the extra parts that I carry in there, etc., because I need to get to the fasteners at the rear of the car as well. So we'll get there in just a minute. Let me fire up the Harley, and we'll get it out of the garage and move it to the backyard. All right, first step accomplished. We've got the car up on ramps. We've got it chalked on the front wheels, both sides, so it doesn't roll back. It's not going to roll back anyway with the jack stands where they are, but safety first. So we've got a couple jack stands here. We keep the jacks up in the back just in case as safeties. I've got a jack on either side. I find it's easier to jack these cars up if you've got identical jacks and you use one per side, and you do a little per side as you go up, just to keep the car a little bit more even. So you can see I've got two identical floor jacks there that I use to jack the car up. So that's ready to go. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll work on emptying the boot out, take the spare out and all of the tools and stuff out of there. And I think we're going to take the seats out. We'll probably put the top down or either take the top completely off. I haven't decided yet. It's probably just easy just to take the top right off and put that away safely for now, and then we'll be able to get to the access points where we need to. The bolts on the floor, both the front and rear outriggers. There's two bolts on the shelf we need to get at. There's some bolts on the inside that we need to get at that hold the seat belt down, and there's another bolt there that holds the body to the frame with a little plate on it. We'll get there eventually. And there's three fasteners here in the rear, two on the frame and one that's the spare tire hold down that need to be loosened as well to be able to move this body up enough so we can get the shims out of the rear outrigger location. I don't believe I'll have to go much further forward than that. There is a bolt location in the forward footwell. I don't think I'll have to touch that, but we may need to. But I'm thinking as long as I go up to this front outrigger, that should be enough just to remove a body shim out of the rear. All right, a quick look at the boot before we unpack it. So full-size spare in these cars. and all of the accompanying tools, and a lot of spare parts, some spare rad hoses, some spare fuel hose, spare electric fuel pump just in case. I've got a spare mechanical pump and a coil probably in there somewhere, spare heater valve, spare fan belt, spare oil feed gauge hose just in case the nylon one on it splits while I'm on the road. That hasn't been changed out yet on this car. That'd be another good thing to do to upgrade this car. Anyway, so we'll remove all that stuff out of there. Trunk board's already out over there, carpet's already out, tools are already out. So let's get this emptied. Alright, the boot's cleaned out, and like I'd mentioned, not necessary to really remove the soft top, but I'm going to go ahead just for ease of access. There's only 7/16 bolts across the back here to hold the rail to the car. Once you remove those, you can lift the soft top right off. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. And after you get the rear rail undone, there's two more fasteners, 2 or 3 fasteners per side that you need to do that attaches the soft top frame to the actual body tub, and you can see them I think here. So there's 2 here. Sometimes there's another one down the bottom. Mine doesn't have one there. So we just have the 2 per side to undo, and then the top will come off. Now obviously it would be helpful to have another hand here to do the next step, but we've done it before one-handed, so we'll attempt to get the top off by ourselves. You know, just got to make sure you clear that frame from hitting the body tub on the way out. We're just going to lift it straight up and back, and we'll put it on the driveway behind the car. Hopefully. Watch your fingers, you don't want to get anything pinched. As a matter of fact, I think I'll put on a pair of gloves. We'll wing it. Alright, no harm done. There she is. We'll straighten her out a bit and maybe move it over to the grass, and then we'll move it indoors for safekeeping until we can get it back on the car. And some of my viewers may have noticed that these are not the original seats to this car. They are indeed TR6 seats, but these are 69 TR6 seats. They are 1 year only seat, and fairly rare. They are by far the most comfortable seats out of the seats that were offered in the TR6. There was this year, which was 69 only, and they did a fixed headrest option up until 72, and then they did a movable headrest option up until 76, from 73 till 76. I do have the original seats for this car, but they are nowhere near as comfortable as the 69 seats. The other cool thing about the 69s, not only do they have the high headrest, high backs, they also have the flip down headrests. There's a lever down here you pull, and I've just sort of actuated it so I could show you this without having to pull it. And then the headrests simply fold down, so you can use a flat tonneau cover and not worry about the headrest sticking up above it if you want to use the tonneau cover. So that's a pretty cool option. These were originally a shadow blue seat. You can maybe see some of the shadow blue peeking through there. These were dyed black. You could probably use another re-dye, but they're not in too bad a shape. Anyway, I put these in for my trip to St. Louis, and they, like I'd mentioned, they were extremely comfortable, much more comfortable than the 76 seats, or the 73 style seats, which went to 76. Fortunately, the seats come out fairly easy on these cars. They are only held at the front of the seat track by 2, I believe they're 1/2-inch bolts, so a 1/2-inch bolt and nut, and a couple of washers per side. So 4 bolts to remove, and the seats should be able to come out. We're going to leave the seat tracks in, but we want to get the seats out, so we'll go ahead and we'll do that now. Alright, let's get the seats out. Front bolts are undone, so should be able to just lift these up carefully. The 69 seats are a little heavier. They come up pretty easily off the tracks. There you go. There's those 2 mounting points. I don't know if you can see them here. 1 per side. I don't know if I'm in focus or not. Anyway, they are out. Let's put them over here. You can see why I moved the bike out. I'm going to need some room. Alright, let's go and do the other one. Doesn't take too long to get the seats out, which is great. Alright guys, seats are out, console's out, and here's what it looks like under those items. Definitely could use a little bit of a vacuum under there, but it doesn't look too bad. Remember I talked about using jute and not using jute in the 250 project because it tends to pull out from underneath the carpets, where you can sort of see it happening over there, how the sort of the strings come out from the edges of the jute. So I'm not a big fan of jute. It tends to do that over time and just makes things look a little bit messier. So I like to go to a more modern underlay if I can. Anyway, next step is to peel the carpet back, and there's my jute under here, and there are the fasteners we're trying to get to. So those and the ones up here, up at the front, there's a little tiny bit of surface rust on them. But we're going to need to get to those, and the fasteners here on the inside as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll start finding our fasteners. There's a couple here on the rear shelf as well that I need to expose. So we'll be able to get to all of those before we get to fixing this gap by removing one of the shims here on this rear outrider. At least one of the shims, possibly two. Alright, we started on the fasteners on the inside of the body tub. Here is the mount that goes to the frame here beside the transmission tunnel, and we're just about to undo the seat belt as well. That is here. And then, as mentioned, we'll go after these bolts here on the outriggers. I'll have to uncover them a little bit, but we'll go after these and we'll loosen those off in the rear. Actually, we'll remove these entirely from the rear because we need to remove a shim from this location. The front outrigger bolts will just loosen off so the floor can actually move up, but we'll remove these ones entirely. And then we'll go after these bolts back here on the rear shelf. Alright, I've decided to actually go ahead and take the seat tracks out. I probably should have just done it initially anyway. It's only 6 bolts to get them out. The reason I'm going to do it is just going to be much easier to clean these carpets. I'm thinking I can actually take them to my local little car wash place has a carpet steam cleaner. So I may as well just take these to the steam cleaner, steam clean them, put them back in, and they will be fresh as a daisy, and I won't have to actually clean these again underneath the seats for another 10 years. And look, I even found 20 cents in the process. So we'll put that towards the restoration fund for the TR250. So yeah, so there's the carpet out, and you can see I definitely benefit from a good steam cleaning. And we'll shake this jute out and give that a good cleaning as well before we put that back in. We've saved all the hardware here. Here are the seat track spacers, in case you've never seen these before. Those will go back in to keep the seat rails off the carpet so the seat rails can slide. Anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll remove this jute. This is why you don't glue anything in here as far as floor carpets are concerned, just in case you want to remove it to do a little cleaning. And I just thought I'd give you a quick look at the floor paint. It's holding up nicely after 13 years or so. I did originally pour 15 the floors of this car and then put an etch primer on and then body color over the pour 15. So that seems to be holding up quite nicely. All right, on to the next step, which is the other side. And then we'll move to the rear shelf fastener, which I've undone on that side. And then we'll move all the way to the back of the car. All right, we're now under the rear of the car, and we've just moved this, removed the bolt for the bumper bracket that attaches the bumper bracket to the frame, so that can move up and down because we're not going to detach the bumper from the body, so we want this bracket to slide. Now there's one more fastener up here. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it or not. That holds the rear body mount down, and there are shims under that. So we want to loosen that off, so we're going to go after that one now, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. We've already done the center bolt there that holds down that spare tire hook, so we've just loosened that off, so we're good to go there. So we'll continue on here. Alright, well, there's the rear body mounting bolt. That's what that looks like. So large washer goes on top, nylock nut, and that just feeds up through the frame and attaches to the body mount. And again, remember there's some aluminum shims under there, little horseshoe style shims that fit under this location. So we may have to add a shim here. We'll wait and see how we make it. Alright guys, welcome back to the garage. It's another day. It's Tuesday, and we're continuing on the body shim fix on the 1973 Triumph TR6. We're just in the process of trying to remove a packing from the rear outrigger, and in order to do that we've had to loosen a bunch of fasteners or remove them entirely. I've just removed a couple more fasteners. I've actually removed the fasteners that hold the fender to the stay on the inside here. There's two fasteners that I removed there, just short fasteners. And there was one more bumper bolt that I just removed right at the rear of the lower bumper bracket. So that body tub can now sort of move fairly freely on the rear part of it. Again, I haven't removed the fasteners completely on the front outrigger, nor have I removed the fasteners completely here on the rear shelf. They are just up and loose. So we will get some movement, but not a ton of movement unless I remove those fasteners completely. But we don't want to overstress the body tub and bend it either. We don't want to crack our paint here, for example, in this seam. So we're going to be careful about lifting it overly too much. So we just want to lift it enough to be able to get the shims out of the, like I said, the outrigger area there. And I've got a jack under the floor. And we may just move that to the sill with a little bit of block of wood to protect it. Just enough to lift that up to get the shims out. So we'll figure out the best way to do that. I may actually put a block at the front edge of the spare tire carrier. That's a fairly strong point on this car too, and it's fairly central, so that might work as a good lifting point with a block as well. I'm going to just use a piece of 4x4, which I have laying around here somewhere, just under the car, I think, somewhere. We'll just spread the load, obviously, with a piece of 4x4 under that sheet metal so we don't wrinkle anything. Alright, let's continue. Alright guys, I've also decided to remove the rear tires just to give me a bit more space to work, and then specifically I wanted to see how many shims that I had in the rear of the car already. It looks like I have 2 shims already at the back of this car. I don't really want to add any more shims at the rear if possible. I did find something interesting along the way, and this goes back to doing inspections, you know, a few times a year. I've just found something on the other side of the car which is very curious, not exactly safe, not really safety related, but I'm a little bit shocked to actually find what I'm looking at. Let me go to the other side and I'll turn you on over there. Alright, have a look over there, and you can probably see the end of my sway bar over there with the drop link up through the trailing arm with the purple poly bushings on there. So as I was checking my shims, like I'd mentioned on the passenger side rear, I looked across and I saw that this is missing the entire link. So the link has dropped off my sway bar on the driver's side at some point, no idea when, and you'd think that you would hear that. There'd be a lot of parts falling off the car. I'm not sure if the actual bolt broke. It looks like it may have, because I don't see any remnants of the bolt that actually goes up through inside here. So I'm not exactly sure what's happened. There's a large washer on the inside that I can still hear is there. So further investigation needs to happen on this side. Can't really believe that's actually happened. Anyway, I'm not sure that I actually have the parts to fix this. I believe I have the bushings and probably the links, but I don't believe I have the large plate that goes on the bottom of the trailing arm. That's obviously fallen off. That would have made quite a bit of a racket as it hit the pavement and spun away, but I didn't hear it. It's not like I have any music in my car, or I don't wear any headphones or anything, so yeah, I'm surprised I missed that. Although this car, on the way to St. Louis, as I'd mentioned with my last trip, we went across some extremely bad roads through Michigan, and I wouldn't be surprised if it came off then. Anyway, again, going to bear some further investigation. I thought the trailing arm actually might be broken at some point, and but that's not the case. It doesn't look like, but like I said, we'll investigate further and figure out exactly what happened. Alright, under further investigation, there is the remains of the bolt with a clean break. So that's there, just on the inside. It fits down through a large washer on the inside of the trailing arm. I can still see one of the bushings in there as well. So yeah, so broken bolt, and I've lost the bottom of my sway bar mount because of it. That, I believe, is also a grade 8 bolt, so it must have taken some severe force to break that. Alright guys, we managed to get the shim pack from off the top of the outrigger underneath the floor, and we had 3 shims in there, and so I've just taken those out. We'll probably end up putting one back in, but just for fun, I'm going to tighten the fasteners down without any shim on the rear outrigger, and have a look at what the door looks like when it's shut. We'll also just fasten down this rear mount quickly, and then we'll take a quick look and see how we're doing as far as gap is concerned. Alright, the car is not on the ground yet, obviously still on jack stand, so I expect this to close up even a bit more. But here it is, just with that initial fix of removing the shims. I would say that's much better than it was. Still not perfect, but definitely much better. And again, that should close up a little bit tighter once the car is back on its wheels. We might do a little bit more playing around with some shimming at the rear, and we'll see if we can get that to look a little bit better. Alright guys, it's going to be really hard to show you, but I'm under the car at the outrigger position, and you can just see where I've got the jack positioned on the sill right at this point where the outrigger comes for the frame. So we're trying to jack the body up there to give it a little bit extra support. So we're trying to get those rubber shims out there, so we're going to gingerly pick them out and put one back in hopefully, and we'll see how we do with our gaps. We've got the shims removed and one put back in on the driver's side. We're now going to work on the rear shims. I'm going to pull out what's there and take a quick measurement of them. I have some spare shims over here on the floor, right there. So I may be able to do a little bit of a combination of shims to make it slightly thicker in the rear. I don't want to go too crazy. If you go too high in the rear, you end up seeing the rear frame rails below the valence a lot more prevalent. So we're not going to do that. We'll make it the best we can. It's already better. We'll make it the best we can before we stop. Alright, so we're just having a look at the rear shim location. You can see the 2 aluminum packing pieces there underneath the body mount, so we're going to just remove those like I said. We'll give them a quick measure. Maybe we can do a slight thickness adjustment there at the rear without going crazy, and then we'll button things back up. Alright, here's the shims that I took out. These are aftermarket shims. Here are the original shims that came out of the car, and you can probably visually see just by looking at them that they are higher than the replacement shims. We're going to go back with the old stock shims, probably 1/8 of an inch higher than the replacement shims, so that should help a little bit. So we'll go ahead and we'll install those now. Alright guys, we've got the car back off the jack stands and off the ramps at the front and back on the ground. That's the only way you're going to be able to check the door gaps to see how you did in the end, and I guess we'll look at them together. Which side do you want to go to first? Driver's side? Alright. So hopefully you'll remember what the door gaps looked like previously, and you can tell now, I would say that they are almost perfect on the driver's side. Triumph's always had a little bit of a, or a lot of them I've seen have always had a little bit of a stick out at the bottom of the door, and this one is no different. Anyway, it was like that from the factory. But anyway, those gaps are really good. I'm really happy with those on the driver's side. Don't worry about the dirt. It still hasn't been washed since I took it out of storage. I was just waiting to do all the work on it before we actually give it a final wash. And I obviously still haven't assembled the interior. But I just wanted to check on the gaps. That was the primary purpose of this video. So let's have a look at the passenger side. And that also looks very good. I'm very happy with that gap. So I would say that that time and effort was definitely a success, and I'm happy with that. I can live with that now. So that was probably about 13 years ago that I put the body back on the frame of this car, and I've lived with those gaps for that long. So I guess that was long enough. Anyway, another project crossed off the list. So we'll probably upload this video just so you can see that I'm actually working on something. We will go back out here, and obviously I need to do a few things now I've got to fix that sway bar mount on the driver's side that I showed you. I'd mentioned we're going to do some exhaust work at some point in the future. I'm having a look at the tires, and these tires are now about 12 years old. I originally ran red lines on this car, and I actually have the original red line spare still here, never used. But I think these tires are about 12 years old, and of course tires age out versus a mile out. There's lots of tread on these tires, but it's definitely time for a change from a safety perspective. So we'll probably investigate getting new tires on this as well in the next week or two. So, and obviously I need to put the interior back together after we do some cleaning, some vacuuming, maybe some steam cleaning. We'll clean these floors up again. These floors haven't seen the light of day in about 13 years. So we'll clean these up with a little bit of soap and water and get them looking better. We'll clean all the sill carpets, the rear carpets, the floor carpets, etc. And then we're going to probably give this a good wash and a good detail. And then we'll hopefully by then be allowed to actually drive this on the road. So we've got a few weeks before the lockdown ends, so maybe we'll get everything done before that happens. Alright guys, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.